Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to our Shirin Sfasamas Parshas Vayishlach Tavshin Peivav. We find that when Yaakov Avinu, after he fights the Sar Shel Esav, and after he meets Esav and walks away unharmed, Yaakov Avinu comes into the city of Shechem. He comes in, as the pasuk says, Vayav Yaakov Shalim. Yaakov Avinu comes complete, physically, spiritually, into the city of Shechem, finally entering back into Eretz Yisrael after decades away from Eretz Yisrael. And the pasuk says, Vayichan es Pnei Yair. Yaakov Avinu sets up his camp in the city of Shechem. Says the Heilige Medrash, Nichnas be'erev Shabbos. This is not any day of the week that Yaakov Avinu enters into the city of Shechem. Rather, it's erev Shabbos. As the sun is beginning to set, while it's still day, Yaakov Avinu enters into the city of Shechem. And he sets up his tchum me'ba'od. You know, there's halacha on Shabbos Kodesh that the way that a person enters in and the place where a person is at the beginning of Shabbos, that defines his parameters, and that defines his boundaries for where a person is able to walk, where the tchum begins for Shabbos Kodesh and how far a person is able to walk. Yaakov Avinu entered into the city of Shechem. He was kaveh, where he was going to rest, where he was going to set up his camp, and that set up his tchum for Shabbos Kodesh. And therefore, Vayichan es Pnei Yair meant this is the place that he set up his machane on erev Shabbos in order to go ahead and give clear boundaries for where the tchum was going to be for Shabbos. Says the Medrash, Da Amris, what we see from this pasuk, based on the Medrash's way of understanding it, Sheshamar Yaakov es Shabbos Kodim Shanita, that Yaakov Avinu was Makayim Shabbos Kodesh even before Shabbos was given to Klal Yisrael. Zakta Heilige Sfasamas, and Frekta Sfasamas, a very simple question. Why now? What took place now that made Yaakov Avinu suddenly, that the Torah suddenly reveals that Yaakov Avinu kept Shabbos? If Yaakov Avinu kept Shabbos before it was given, then L'chari Yaakov Avinu kept Shabbos when he was in the house of Lavan as well, and when he was in the house of Shem Ve'ever and their base Medrash, when he was in the house of Yitzchak Avinu. Why now? Why only after Yaakov Avinu finally comes back after decades away from Eretz Yisrael, involved in the house of Lavan, spending time in the house in the base medrash of Shem Ve'ever? Why is now the first time that we find that Yaakov Avinu, we find this remez of Yaakov Avinu keeping Shabbos? And why specifically in the city of Shechem? What's unique about the city of Shechem that made the Torah go ahead and reveal to us that over here in Shechem, that was the place that Yaakov Avinu kept Shabbos? What's unique about his journey back to Eretz Yisrael, about the city of Shechem, that connects Yaakov Avinu specifically to the idea of Shabbos? Zakta Eligas Fasam is an unbelievable thing in the year Tafresh Lamed Beis. Yaakov Avinu's job when he left Eretz Yisrael, when he left our place which is called Sheva, which represents the idea of Shabbos, and he went to Haran, his avodah was to go ahead and to head into the avodah of the 6 days of the week. The Sfasamis often explains that there are two levels of avodah that a person can be involved in. One is called Shabbos Kodesh, and one is called the 6 days of the week. The 6 days of the week, they not only mean that a person is allowed to be involved in physical labor, and a person is involved in that avodah of Sheishis Yamim Tavim, but Asisa Kamalachtecha in a physical way. It also means in a spiritual way. The 6 days of the week have a tremendous amount of temptations and isyanis and avodas that a person needs to be involved in. The 6 days of the week are Tircha Yegia Avodah. The 6 days of the week are where a person's involved, not just in physical activity, but in spiritual activity as well. Fighting, battling the Yetzer Hara, overcoming challenges, overcoming the nisyanis, perfecting oneself to get to a higher madrega. The avodah of the 6 days of the week is to go out and to face the challenges head on and to try to better oneself in order to prepare oneself for Shabbos Kodesh. That's the avodah of the 6 days of the week. Shabbos Kodesh is the avodah of Menucha. Shabbos Kodesh is like Chazal said, that a person walks into Shabbos ki'ilu kol melachtecha asuya, as if everything that needs to be done physically and spiritually has already been taken care of. Shabbos Kodesh is vayonach b'yom hashvi. Shabbos Kodesh is a day of Menucha. It's not a day of avodah. It's not a day of yigia. It's not a day where a person's involved in the challenges of life, but rather it's a day where a person's able to rest and appreciate all the avodah that he put in during the 6 days of the week. Kol mi shetarech be'erev Shabbos is able to be yoicha b'Shabbos. Says the Heilige Sfasamas, when Yaakov Avinu left Eretz Yisrael, it wasn't just a physical location that he was leaving. His avodah now changed. He's now no longer able to be the ishtam yoshev halim, the one who's able to just sit simply in the tent learning, which is the avodah of Menucha. Now Yaakov Avinu goes down to the house of Lavan. And aside from the physical labor that he needs to be involved in, Yaakov Avinu is involved in fighting the battles of living in the house of Lavan, so much so that he's able to come back to Esav and be able to say, I'm Lavan Garti, and nevertheless, Tarik Mr. Shamarti, I didn't learn from his negative actions, that I went ahead and I fulfilled the mission of the 6 days of the week. But the whole avodah of Yaakov Avinu, during the time that he spent in the house of Lavan and the time that he spent in Chutz La'aretz, was the avodah of going ahead and working and struggling and working through the battles of going ahead to be able to get to that madrega of Imlav and Garti, and nevertheless Taryag Mitzvah Shemarti. When he comes back into Eretz Yisrael, says this Vasamis, he's coming back into Eretz Yisrael. He's already Baruch Hashem had Rachel, Leah, Bilhah, and Zilpah. He already has 11 out of 12 of the children out of the Shiftei Ka. He already went ahead and made a name for himself as somebody who's capable of working through the challenges of the 6 days of the week. And now he comes back into Eretz Yisrael, and he's coming to the place of Shabbos Kodesh. But says this Vasamis, his journey wasn't just a journey for the sake of leaving Eretz Yisrael, leaving Shabbos Kodesh, and going into the 6 days of the week. Says this Vasamis, his journey was the journey of every single Yid on Matzah Shabbos. Every Yid's avodah on Matzah Shabbos is to enter into the 6 days of the week with the power of Shabbos, with the warmth of Shabbos, with the koich of Shabbos, to draw Shabbos into the 6 days of the week. Not simply to live as two different domains, this Shabbos and the 6 days of the week, but the avodah is to be mamshech bechinas maisa lebechinas Shabbos, to draw and to connect those two things together, to be able to draw Shabbos into the 6 days of the week. The Sfasamis writes in the Kutim that the reason why it's called Erev Shabbos, Erev means the eve of Shabbos, but Erev also means the ta'aruvas. Erev means something that's a mixture. Something that's a mixture of two different ideas. Erev Shabbos, says the Sfasamis, is a day in which the 6 days of the week and Shabbos Kodesh get mixed in each other. It's already going ahead and it's beginning to enter into the domain of Shabbos, but it's not yet Shabbos. It's still the 6 days of the week, but it's not the regular 6 days of the week. It's Erev Shabbos Kodesh. It's not Friday, it's Erev Shabbos Kodesh. But Erev means it's taruvas. Erev means it's a mixture. And the avodah of when a person's faced with the mixture is to go and to draw out the nekuda of Shabbos within Erev Shabbos and the nekuda of Shabbos within every day of the 6 days of the week. Says this Vasamis, this is why the Pasuk tells us that the avodah of Klal Yisrael is lases es Shabbos, to create Shabbos. Says this Vasamis, we don't need to make Shabbos and Shabbos Kodesh. Shabbos Kodesh is as the Gemara in Pesachim says, Shabbos Kodesh is kfi v'kayim ador Banashal make Shabbos. The Banashal went ahead and create Shabbos, and Shabbos is something that Bezdin doesn't need to be involved in, and Klal Yisrael doesn't need to be involved in making Shabbos for Shabbos. But you know what Klal Yisrael needs to be involved in? Making Shabbos during the 6 days of the week. Lasis is Shabbos, to go ahead and Bnei Yisrael make Shabbos during the 6 days of the week, drawing the Yemei HaMaisa and Shabbos, drawing the Shabbos into the Yemei HaMaisa and merging those two things together to be able to recognize the ta'arovis of Shabbos and the 6 days of the week that takes place, and to recognize Hayoim Yom Rishon b'Shabbos, Hayoim Yom Sheni b'Shabbos, that every day contains within it an akuda, a spark of Shabbos Kodesh, and to be able to draw it out and to reveal it within Shabbos Kodesh. Says this Fasamas, now it's obvious to us why only now do we find Yaakov Avinu keeping Shabbos. Of course, Yaakov Avinu had kept Shabbos before he left Eretz Yisrael and in the house of Lavan, but now is the time that Yaakov Avinu is able to be Vayava Yaakov Shalim. Now is the time that Yaakov Avinu is able to reach the ultimate state of Shlemus, where he's able to merge those two worlds together, the world of Shabbos Kodesh and Eretz Yisrael, and the world of Chutz La'aretz and the 6 days of the week, and to be able to show that Kol Misha Torach Ba'erev Shabbos, Yoichel B'Shabbos, that all of the work that he put in during the time that he was in the house of Lavan, during the time that he was involved in that avodah of the 6 days of the week, all of it was to reveal the avodah of Shabbos Kodesh, to reveal Shabbos, and Mamela, when he comes back to Eretz Yisrael and he keeps Shabbos, it's not the same Shabbos as he kept before. Now it's a Shabbos of Kol Misha Torach Ba'erev Shabbos, Yoichel B'Shabbos. Now it's a Shabbos where he was involved in the avodah during the 6 days of the week, and Mamela Yaakov Avinu was able to come ahead and Vayava Yaakov Shalim Ir Shechem Vayichen Es Pnei Ir. He's able to set up this as being the place where Yaakov is able to say, now I'm Shalim, now I'm able to be complete by merging together Shabbos in the 6 days of the week, and therefore now is the time that the Torah goes ahead and reveals to us that Yaakov Avinu is keeping Shabbos. Says the Heiligis Fasemes in the year Tafresh Lamed, an unbelievable thing. We know in last week's parsha that when Yaakov Avinu was leaving Eretz Yisrael by Yolan Sham Ki Bo Hashemesh, he slept there because the sun had set. Says Rashi, the sun had set before its time. The sun set early and it set prior to the time that it was supposed to be, in order to allow Yaakov Avinu to go to sleep in the Makam HaMikdash and to have that dream of the Sulam Mutzev Arza V'Roshim Agia Shamayim. Says the Medrash that after Yaakov Avinu battles the Sar Shel Esav, he's healed by the sun. The sun has the ability to be a marapa, to heal him, and the sun comes out and heals him. Says the Medrash, an unbelievable thing. By Yizrech Lo Hashemesh, the sun went ahead and the sun was shining. What does that mean? Those hours that were lost, so to speak, where the sun set early, now the sun is able to go ahead and the sun's able to rise at an earlier time and is able to be zreich b'shviloi, to shine for Yaakov Avinu. That after Yaakov Avinu battles the Sar Shel Esav Ada Loisa Shachar, the sun rises prior to its time in order to be able to heal Yaakov Avinu from the beating that he got from the Sar Shel Esav. It's able to heal him, and therefore by Yizrech Lo Hashemesh, it shined early. But it says this Fasemis, it's not just the the world making up and the Rabban Shem making up the lost time, the time that was lost. There's a much deeper idea that's taking place. Says this Sfas Emes, why? What happened? When Yaakov Avinu left Eretz Yisrael, he made Meyoim Laila. The sunset early meant that when instead of living in that place of Shabbos Kodesh where the sun is shining, where a person is able to live with the clarity of Shabbos Kodesh, the amun of Shabbos Kodesh, Yaakov Avinu is exiting Eretz Yisrael meant that the sun was setting early. It meant that day was slowly turning into night. And it was turning into night prior to the time that it should have turned into night. It meant that Yaakov Avinu was entering into the state of Golus. What happens when he comes back? What happens when he beats the Sar Shel Esav? Yaakov Avinu comes back into Eretz Yisrael, and Yaakov Avinu turns night into day. That now the sun is suddenly rising prior to the time that it should rise, because Yaakov Avinu is capable now of turning that night into day. That the Avodah, when he left Eretz Yisrael, says as Sfas Emes, was he put himself into dark places. This is the essence of Yaakov Avinu's journey into the 6 days of the week. This is the essence of every Yid's Avodah. When he enters into the 6 days of the week, is to make night into day. Shabbos Kodesh is the idea of Yom. The 6 days of the week is the idea of Laila. The Avodah of Yaakov Avinu is to be able to make night into day, to be able to make the sun shine prior to the time, to be able to feel Shabbos Kodesh during the week, not to be able to wait, not to have to wait until Shabbos Kodesh to feel Shabbos, but every day of the week to live with that ha'ara, to live with that light of Shabbos, and to be able to find the light within the darkness. Memela says this Sfas Emes, this is why the sun went ahead and the sun came up early, not just because there were lost hours, but because this was Yaakov Avinu's Avodah. This is what Yaakov Avinu did, especially after he beat the Sar Shel Esav. Says this Sfas Emes, now we can understand why all of this took place specifically in the city of Shechem. He brings down from his grandfather Helig Chadush Yerim that Shechem is Rashi Tevis Shem Kavod Malchusay. What does that mean? Shabir Kavod Malchusay Shemayim Gam Ba'olam Hazeh. That what Yaakov Avinu did is Yaakov Avinu is revealing the Shem Kavod Malchusay, the covet of the Rabban Shalom. We're in this world, in this physical world, and specifically in Chutz La'aretz. Yaakov Avinu was able to come Shalom to the Ir Shechem because he was able to be Magala, the Kavod of the Malchus Shemayim Gam Ba'olam Hazeh. Alichaseh Lacharnei Hayudugmas Sheishis Me'amaisa. And Mamelu is able to be Vayichen Espnei Ir, Shekavei Tchumen is able to go out and set up Tchumen as he comes back into the city of Shechem. Because Shechem means Shem Kavod Malchus. He was able to reveal the covet and the Malchus of the Rabban Shem in a dark place, in a place of Laila, in the place of the 6 days of the week, in a place of Chutz La'aretz. And therefore, Vayava Yaakov Shalom, he comes Shalom in Ruchnius and Gashmius. He comes Shalom by merging together Shabbos in the 6 days of the week into the city of Shechem, Shem Kavod Malchusai, and he's able to over there go ahead and set up Tchumen. The Torah reveals that over there, that's where we're able to find the shleimus of Shabbos Kodesh. We're able to merge Shabbos in the 6 days of the week, and this is Yaakov Avinu's Avodah. Obviously, as we said, this is not just Yaakov Avinu's Avodah, this is every Yid's Avodah. As he enters into Shabbos, a Yid says, my goal into entering Shabbos is to make Shabbos not just a 26-hour Shabbos or 28-hour Shabbos, or just the hours that I'm in Shabbos. My goal is to go ahead and to draw from Shabbos into the 6 days of the week. To be able to find that tarevis of Shabbos, that mixture of Shabbos that's there within the Yemei Achol, within the Yemei Maisa during the week, and to pull out that Nakud of Shabbos, Hayom Rishim b'Shabbos, Hayom Sheni b'Shabbos, to find Shabbos in the 6 days of the week, to turn night into day, to turn Chutz La'aretz into Eretz Yisrael, to be able to go out and to reveal Shabbos within the 6 days of the week. Hashem should help us that we should be zeicha to keep Shabbos in the proper way, and to make the shleimus of Shabbos by merging it together with the 6 days of the week. Have a great Shabbos.